Welcome to the Big Kids Book Club. A podcast about all things fictional from middle grade to young adult. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back to the Big Kids Book Club. I'm your host, Marcus, and joining me in the clubhouse this week, we have Vashti Hardy, author of the Brightstorm duology and Wildspark, to name but a few. Vashti, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me along today. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So we've had a good, quick chat before the show, but why don't, for all our listeners who are listening in for the first time or maybe haven't quite heard of you, do you want to give us an idea of your writing journey, like how you started out and how you got to where you are at the moment?
I suppose, story of Vashti's life.
Yeah.
It all started when I was at school, when I was about 7, that's when it did start for me, because a teacher brought in a book called Rebecca's World, which is sadly out of print now, but it was written by, you might have heard of Terry Nation, who I think wrote a lot for adult and TV. He was actually the creator of the Daleks, apparently, in Doctor Who. But he wrote one children's book called Rebecca's World. And the teacher read this to us. It's about a girl who magically transports through space through a telescope. So she looks through her dad's telescope and it sees a planet millions of miles away, and it magically transports her to this planet where she has this great adventure. And I was hooked. As soon as the teacher started reading this, it just blew my mind, because I suddenly realized that through books you could go anywhere. Anything was possible. You could, and it didn't matter if you were, rich, poor, who you were. Through books, it's a great equalizer. I could travel, and we didn't have much money when I was growing up for going on fancy holidays or anything. My holiday was my nan's back garden. So for me, a book where you could, through your imagination, go to these places was a real pivotal point in my life. And at that moment, I thought, one day I'd like to do that. I'd like to create worlds to transport readers to. So that's when it started. Obviously, quite a journey to get to actually having a published book on the shelves. As most writers will tell you, it's not it doesn't happen overnight. Like anything in life, it takes a long time to learn your craft, your skills, learn who you are as a writer as well, and find your own niche and what makes you happy in your writing. So it was always there for me, and I just gradually sort of learnt my skills, and then I think I got my first publishing deal early 40. So it was not overnight for sure, but I was doing other things as well. I was a teacher for a while, did several other jobs, but always the writing was there as my first true love that I wanted to be. But probably, I think a lot of young writers, young readers can relate to this. Sometimes you think that authors are almost magical creatures that are out of reach, that young Vashti would have thought, I can't possibly do that. That's for these really amazing people that get their stories right first time. And then actually, as soon as you realise that's not how it works, that it's okay to find it hard. It's okay to spend a long time learning. Then that's really important to for young readers and writers to know that it isn't something that other people do. If you want to do it, it's something that you can do if you work hard enough and find a way.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the core important message. And I've spoken to a few authors, and they all have the same sort of similar journey. It's not an overnight success. There's no such thing as that in writing. It does take dedication. You have to have that passion, that love behind it. You really want. But you've touched upon a point that I picked up there about being a teacher. Now, I believe you were a primary school teacher, wasn't it, for a bit?
I was, yes, for a few years, and it was a lovely experience. And for me, I think the reason I went into primary school teaching was because of my love of story. and especially my love of fantasy worlds and middle grade sort of books, things like Narnia when I was younger. The books that really transport you, and the books that you hold a little piece inside of you as you get older. That sort of made me attracted to doing primary school teaching, because I thought, oh, I can still be part of that world. If I'm not a writer, at least I can enjoy bringing stories into children's lives. I can be that teacher that maybe reads Rebecca's World and maybe changes a child's life, and gives them that kind of that little spark and for their own reading or writing journey. So I would, everything that I did as a primary school teacher, I would always try and turn it round to story in some way. It was be like, right, class, I'd sneak in creative writing journals, and we'd have free writing every Friday and things. And yeah, I'd try and base all my topics. How can we twist this into a story-based thing? So yeah, so teaching was a lovely sort of way to do that. And you can't be, as a teacher, when it's story time, these are the moments that I remember from school. You don't often, I know some people might, but you don't often remember learning long division or something as a really special moment. I'm sure some people do, but story time, that lovely magical moment of the day when you can lose yourself to your imagination, is magic. And there's nothing like, as a teacher, if you're reading a story to the children and they are hooked on every word, and you see that little spark in their eye of wonder, it's magical to think that you can do that and connect like that. So yeah, you know, I have so much respect for all the teachers out there, especially the reader teachers that are on social media. Are a wonderful force for good in the country, for children, for bringing the right stories or genres to children, to opening them up to poetry, illustrators, books with facts, the whole lot. There's a really great movement of teachers that are doing that at the moment. So yeah, just a big salute to them all out there if they're listening.
Oh, absolutely. I think teachers, definitely, you're right. There is a movement that is inspiring that next one. And as you said, the ones that create the spark of inspiration for yourself. So who knows, there might be, down the road, there might be someone who's going to say, oh, I remember Vashti when I was in her primary school class, and might be reading their stories in
Do you know, it happened to me in co-op.
In co-op.
In co-op, I was doing a bit of shopping, and an ex-pupil who was in her late teens, came, Mrs. Hardy, because you're forever Mrs. Hardy for the rest of your life, aren't you, or your name. And she came over to me, and I was like, oh, how's it going? Are you still reading? Because when she started in my class, her first thing she said to me was, I don't read. So to me, that was like, oh, a challenge in year 6 here. I rolled my sleeves up and thought to myself, okay, let's see if I can make her a reader by the end of the year. And, again, it was just a matter of finding the right thing for her. And it was actually, I think it was, excuse me if I get the name wrong, but it was a Marcus Sedgwick, Flood and Fang, something like that. You can have a look, but that captured her, and then there was no stopping her. So then in co-op, I say to her, are you still reading? And she said to me, yes, I'm really into these detective novels and things now. But she did say to me she'd had a bit of a lull in secondary school. She said, I went off it in secondary school because the books that we were doing just didn't interest me at all. But then she had gone back to it after school. So even though a lot of children do tend to dip in and out of it, I think primary school teachers, if you do create that spark early, it is going to last them for life, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of spark, I'm going to use the spark as a nice transition. And the spark of adventure, because you mentioned a couple of times going to other worlds. Now, Brightstorm, we'll start with Brightstorm, very much a otherworld transportation novel. It has every sense that you want. You have adventure, you have journey, you have daring odds, you have evil villains, you got all of it in there. Now, when you were sort of creating that world, obviously it is all a huge world. The whole premise is, the idea is they are traveling the world. was travel therefore, and this escapism to other worlds, was that forefront when you came to sort of designing Brightstorm, or did it take like many sort of, you talk about the long journey you took to write, did it start as something completely different?
It all, my love of adventure and other worlds. I love tales of real life adventure as well. So explorers in real life fascinate me. Just their characters, their personalities, what drives them to do what they do. So I knew I wanted to write something that had an explorer's theme somehow. And I just knew it was a matter of time of finding the right story. And then one day I read the advert that Shackleton apparently put in to find his crew for his expedition, his transantarctic expedition in 1912, I think it was. And it was the advert, I'll get this wrong, but it said something like men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, small chance of success. Basically it was saying you're going to die probably, but and then at the end it's like shared reward and recognition if successful, apply to Ernest Shackleton. I just thought, what a brilliant call to adventure. What if two children were to answer an advert like that? They'd have to have a really good reason to. And Arthur and Maudie Brightstorm popped into my imagination, and it went from there. And I knew that, I always wanted to set it in another world, because you can invent all these amazing places for them to explore. So it was taking essence of the real world and then essence of planet Earth, but doing my own little thing with it, or big thing with it.
Yeah, and they travel across vast deserts and to almost like, the South Polaris, so you got ice, wind, snow, all of those sort of like hazards put up against them. And then, of course, we sort of come back and the journey is sort of very much rooted in this sort of like this smoggy, steampunky city. So you get a little bit of everything in there. But mentioning how you wanted them to be included in the world in the sequel, Dark Whispers, the world actually gets a little bit bigger. So I was wondering whether or not in Brightstorm, you yourself were actually just still understanding and sort of creating the world, because it gets so much bigger in Dark Whispers.
Yeah, do you know, usually what I do, the first thing I do is I draw a map. And this is something I often do when I do workshops in schools with children. That by far the most popular workshop I do is the fantasy map making. Kids absolutely love it and run with it. And it's nice because I can bring all my tips of the way that I do it and the way that I world build, and give them a few key things to run with. And yeah, they produce the most amazing maps. So I start often with a map, because if I get the world right in my imagination, then it's going to feel real for the reader, hopefully. And that's what you want to do. You want to transport them to wherever you're creating, so that they really, really believe that it's a real place. In the same way that, say, if you read Narnia, there's something in all of us, isn't there, that feels like maybe one day, if I push that back of the wardrobe, maybe this time I'm going to get to Narnia. So we all really believe that a little part of us is sort of willing to give everything to these worlds. So that's my job as a writer, is make it real. And then it has to be real in my imagination. So I do it through maps, pictures. I love Pinterest. I have a Pinterest board for every project. Actually, my Brightstorm and Dark Whispers is open for everyone to have a little look if you fancy seeing how my brain works image-wise. Because it's great, because it helps you just bring it all together. Sounds and music, there are other things that I use. Music especially can transport you. So I'll have a Spotify playlist for each project that gets me into that mood or the zone. Or you want to write a sad scene, there's always something from a soundtrack that you can put on that will take you to that place, that helps you to recreate that. So it's a sort of a mixture of lots of other things, which is important for children to know, that writing's not just about writing, it's about creativity, imagination, and the time you spend sitting there writing is, probably 50% of the time that you're actually writing. The rest of your writing is other things that you might be doing, like map making or collecting pictures or scribbling ideas in a sketchbook or something.
Yeah, I see. I like all of those points. You really sort of brought everything together. So it's not just sitting there typing away at the computer. It's actually a whole creative process, And with that, actually, I wonder how many other influences have come into it. Because I was going to ask you about the twins. the Brightstorm twins, are they actually like influenced from maybe your life, your kids yourself? Have they sort of crept in? Because there's a strong sense of like a found family and a bond in that felt very natural amongst them. So I wondered if there is any like real life inspiration for them.
I've got two sisters and a brother. I'm not one of twins or anything, but I'm very fascinated by sibling relationships and the whole idea, which Brightstorm really centers around, this idea of what makes family. You know, none of us can help the family we're born into. We have no say in that whatsoever. So what makes a good family is family more than blood. So Arthur and Maudie, they very sadly lose what they knew as family, but on this adventure they find a whole new family in the crew of the Aurora. They've always got each other, of course, so exploring that relationship is important. The way that siblings are really, at the end of the day, really there for each other, but can have their ups and downs as well and be different, but you know, they've got each other's backs for sure. And I think often twins, you know, sometimes they're portrayed, you know, this whole thing of like the evil twins, isn't there, that you might often kind of find in books. So I wanted to show twins as a really, you know, how a positive twin relationship can be as well, as best as I can understand it, not being a twin, but just drawing from, you know, having siblings and things. And I think a little bit of myself probably went into both Arthur and Maudie in some way, you know, that the way that Arthur's a bit sort of bookish and thoughtful and you know, he has this passion for exploring that he's discovering, and Maudie with her inventiveness. I love science. I've always been really fascinated by big questions in science and invention, so that's where Maudie kind of I channel that in. And also I've got a real thing with creating worlds where sort of busting gender stereotypes and, you know, fighting the cause of trying to bring more equality into workers in science. And I think it's something, I may be wrong here, but I think it's something like around 22% of the workforce in STEM subjects are female. So you can see there's still a big disconnect and a long way to go. So one way of trying to, you know, draw more girls into believing that, you know, that's a path they might want to take if that's what interests them, is through stories. I think plays a really important part. So by presenting worlds where gender's never been a barrier to achievement, hopefully that kind of flags for the girls and the boys out there that, you know, this is how it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to like the subtle tip of the nod there to you can't choose what family you're born into, and that's a nice subtle hint for all those those fans. I like that.
There for Brightstorm.
But I want to stick on that nice science theme you've thrown me there, and actually transition into Wildspark, which is a beautifully created and you can definitely feel the science vibes in it. For those who haven't heard of Wildspark, it's slightly different from Brightstorm, but at the same time it has quite a few similar traits. How would you describe like Wildspark compared to Brightstorm? Because I always think of it as a sort of like a little bit more magical.
Yes, I think there's a slightly more magical elements that are in some ways based on, everything that's in there is based on some sort of scientific fact. But the wonderful thing about creating a world is you can take real things and say, what if we do this with it? What if this was possible? So the world of Wildspark is based on a place that could be a little bit like the place that we live, but different, where science has gone a different way, and they've discovered a way to bring back ghosts. And the way they bring back ghosts is by putting them inside these lifelike animal machine robots, extremely lifelike. So that if you imagine maybe a dog walked into the room, a Labrador, and it opened its mouth and started saying, hello, I'm your great uncle Monty or something. That's the world that they live in. Although these ghosts, there's a real, you know, there's quite a few moral questions around what's going on, and it all revolves around things that we can relate to in real life it's that slightly Jurassic Park thing, isn't it? Just because you can
Yeah.
doesn't mean you should always. So, and that's something that as science, you know, modern technology, the rate it explodes. Children, you know, as they grow up with this rate of development, these are the things that are important to grapple. So it's me sort of putting an idea out there and sort of going, well, this is, you know, this what they can do in this world. Yeah, let's have fun with it. Let's have a little think about the morals of what's going on and how people are treated and the problems that come up from this sort of technology, if it were possible. So yeah, it's all those questions, but at the end of the day, it's about a girl, Prue, who's lost her brother, and you know is grieving and wants to find a way back to him. So it's kind of, you know, a human journey, but there are all these other scientific questions going on as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's definitely a deeper meaning to it. Of course, I mean, it kicks off the fact that, you know, Prue is trying to find like answers to the possibility within her brother, and even goes so far as to impersonate him, really. And there is a lot of a more sort of a grey moral area there, and a deeper mystery to the whole thing. You know, are personifates real? Should they have rights? So it definitely hits home on a lot of topics that I think are very relevant today, and leave like a sort of us thinking a little bit more sort of post the book. You know, we're thinking a little bit more about like, what have I just read? And maybe it's because of that deeper context that it may have won a little award. Wildspark itself.
Just a little one. Do you know what? Childhood dream come true. You know, for me, growing up, you know, Blue Peter was on the telly after school.
Yeah.
And I always, like many other people, wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter. And so to win the best story in, you know, Blue Peter Awards this year was unbelievable. I still can't believe it happened.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I should say to everyone, I didn't actually, I just said a little award. The actual award was the Blue Peter Best Story Award for 2020 is what Wildspark won. Sorry, I should have said that before. Not just a little award.
Right,
but,
I think I added it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, a huge honour. And in its 20th year as well, which made it extra special. And, you know, I look back at all the other authors that have won it over the years, and I'm just, yeah, I do. I think I'm going to wake up and so it will be that it was all a dream, Vashti. Sorry, but I have the badge to prove it. So
you've got the Blue Peter badge.
Yeah, I know. I'm so it's like my most precious.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So yeah, massive congratulations for that. I think, you know, Wildspark for me definitely deserves it, and then hopefully, possibly a Wildspark 2 might also win it in the future. But currently, I believe there's a new project that is almost about to be released. We're currently recording this late September, but we're on the precipice of a new book, if I'm right in speaking.
Yeah, do you know what? There are a few on the horizon, which is a lovely place to be. So the next one, which is out October the 1st, so a week from when we're recording this, but if you're in October already, it's already there in your bookshop. But that one's called The Griffin Gate, and that's published, my usual publisher is Scholastic. The Griffin Gate is published by a publisher called Barrington Stoke, who a lot of you may have heard of, who specialise in producing books for reluctant readers or readers with dyslexia or visual stress. So a little bit shorter than, you know, my usual books, so more around the 10,000 words rather than 70,000.
Yeah.
And printed on paper that's like with a tint to it, so people with visual stress or dyslexia, it's a lot easier, and the editing all keeps this in mind as well. But for me, the challenge was, it might be shorter, but I still need to build a brilliant world and have a great adventure, because all readers deserve that, whether, you know, they can access, you know, if you can't access a longer book, doesn't mean you can't, you know, grow your imagination and you know, it doesn't mean you don't enjoy. No. You can't enjoy reading. So The Griffin Gate is based on a world where a family, the Griffin family, great grandma Griffin invented a map. But because it's me, it's no ordinary map. It's a map that's got great technology built into it, and you can teleport through gates on the map to different parts in the country. So people call for help via, you know, the old red telephone boxes that you see.
I do remember the old red telephone. Yeah.
In this world, I thought, oh, they're really good, and they don't have any use anymore in our world. So I thought I'll port them into this new world and use them as somewhere where they call for a warden to come and help them. And then back at HQ, where the Griffin Gate map is, a gate will flash on the map, and the warden teleports into the map and goes and helps whoever is in need. So that's kind of the essence of that story. And the main character is Grace Griffin, who is too young to be a warden, but she doesn't think she is. She thinks she can do this. So you can imagine what could happen. She kind of, takes opportunity of a quiet time when a call comes in. And so it's her adventure. So that's one book. Then next year, I've got a couple with Scholastic as well. I've got another in the 8 to 12 sort of age range, middle grade, which I can't say the title yet because and tell you too much because they haven't announced it officially. Maybe by the time this is broadcast, maybe it'll be out there. But I can tell you, it's a whole new world. I got a bit of Aladdin then. It's a whole new world. So it's a whole new world, and in this world there are some big philosophical things to chew over as well. So it's got the same thing as in the Wildspark vibe, but very different. It's very much a human's relationship with nature, with a lot of twisty things that go on.
Very relevant now.
For that one. And I've got another book with Scholastic for slightly younger, 7 to 9s, called Harley Hitch and the Iron Forest, which I'm so excited about. So this is going to be illustrated all the way through by wonderful George Ermos, who designed the covers. For my other books, and along with Jamie Gregory, who's the designer at Scholastic. I must give him a shout out because he just brings extra magic to it all as well. Between them, they're just fantastic, so talented. So they're doing the illustrations. George is illustrating, Jamie's designing. And Harley Hitch is an inventive world, a sparky young girl who is eager to please, and sometimes things don't always go to plan for her, but she is a trier. She's a real roll your sleeves up and give it a go. And it's a different world, so you get fun things in it, like there's a rusty river where you can fish for inspiration, but it's no ordinary river. It's the fish that you fish for are metal robot type fish, and they will give you, if you catch one, it'll tell you some sort of proverb or something which is advice, so you can be inspired. So if Harley's looking to find a solution for something, she'll go to the rusty river and get some advice, but Harley being Harley, she'll misinterpret it and and go off on a different tangent. And there's a star chatter observatory where you can chat to the stars. The stars have their own personalities. You get the divas and things. So that's quite fun. And she goes to a school, an inventive school called Cogworks, where she I love it. She's got a good nemesis as well, Fenelda Spigot, who you're going to love to hate her.
I love the names. Firstly, alliterated names is always great, and then, when you put in the sort of like the names, like obviously you go to a school like Cogsworth and your last name's called Spigot. I mean, I like that. I'm a big fan of George's illustrations as well. So I think combining the two of them is going to be, like, your writing and George's illustrations. That's going to be definitely one to keep an eye out for.
Such a talent. And I've been so lucky with my covers. They're just so beautiful. And I never have any, I never know what to expect when I get sent the file that's the title is cover. Like my heart skips a beat, and I open it and I'm like, oh, what's it going to be like? And then every single time I'm just blown away by what they've created. So I feel really lucky to have him working on my stories and illustrating. Actually, also, if you are a Brightstorm or Dark Whispers fan, Brightstorm's out in the US. Now, in US Brightstorm, it has illustrations in it by George. So every not like loads, but like one per chapter, and they're beautiful. and he's just done the same for Dark Whispers US. And yeah, to see him, so all the, if you've not read Dark Whispers, the crew goes jungle bound into the rainforest, where there are new interesting technologies and ways of living to be discovered. So you get things like waterfall houses, where people might live in sort of pods attached to the waterfall, and he's brought all these things to life, and it's amazing to see that.
That'd be so cool.
But yeah, if you're a super Brightstorm or Dark Whispers fan, there are bookshops in the US that will easily send things over, so you can seek them out, and they're lovely hardbacks as well. Over there, so you're very lucky.
Oh well, there's October's paycheck gone. I think.
I know.
Oh dear, no. Oh, really looking forward to that, and all of those. Actually, to be fair, I know Griffin Gate is definitely one that I'm sort of like eyeing for, and of course, is it Harley Hicks? Do you say?
Yeah, Harley Hitch. So she's
Harley Hitch. Sorry,
Harley. Yeah, Harley Hitch and the Iron Forest is the best.
So much good, and the secret project. We shall soon find out.
Yes, very soon. I'm beavering away on it at the moment on the edit, but I hope it's going to be something really special.
Well, there you go. Unfortunately, I'm looking at the time, and I think that's all we're going to have time for today in the clubhouse. But before we go, and we do this with all our lovely authors, we're giving one of you listeners a chance to win a copy of that Blue Peter Best Story Award prize winner, Wildspark, that we've been chatting about there. One lucky listener is going to win a signed copy of that. Now, if you want to get hold of it, all you've got to do is go on to Twitter and find us at Big Kids Book Club. That's all one long word. Follow us and like the competition with the following hashtag, which is WildSparkComp. Again, all one long word, WildSparkComp. And we want to know, so all the Persona Fates are based around animals. So if you could, I guess it's a bit dark to say if you could be a Persona Fate, but if you could have a companion who is a Persona Fate, that's slightly less dark. If you could have any sort of like friend who is a Persona Fate, what animal would they be? So it's almost like basically saying, what's your favorite animal is really what I'm saying. But yeah, so if you just tag us, hashtag WildSparkComp, and let us know what your favorite animal is. And you could be in a chance of winning a signed copy of Wildspark. That sound all good, Vashti?
That sounds amazing. And don't forget, actually, with your animals, because you can make any animal, it's a robot animal, you can mix animals. So you might notice from the cover, there is a flying lion. Go big if you want to. Bring back the dinosaurs. If you want to be a T-Rex, you go for it.
There you go. So we'll put all the T's and C's. They will be in the podcast descriptions and the blogs and stuff like that. So don't worry about that. So once this comes out, you'll be able to follow that and follow the rules and get on that. So that is, like I said, that's going to be it for today's session, Vashti. Thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I hope I haven't waffled on too much.
No, it's been.
I like a chat.
It's been so much fun. Like we said, lots of exciting stuff to get into. You've got a load of books that if people haven't heard you, they can get involved with. So all good fun. So until next time, guys, we want to just say stay safe out there and keep on reading.